The most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the most merciful Savior, to whom all praise is due, the Lord of all the world, whom we are forever praising and ever giving thanks for raising up among us our beloved leader and teacher, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In their holy name, sisters and brothers, I greet you. Assalamu alaikum. How are all of you feeling tonight? All praise is due to Allah. We're very happy to have you here tonight. You are in for a treat, and we pray Allah that you get an understanding of what is about to be taught here tonight, and the subject that you are going to hear is an important one. Anytime you come to Muhammad's mosque, what you hear is important. And with the situation in the world what it is today, you and I can't afford not to keep abreast of everything that is going on of importance. Is that right or wrong? And since we know that we must keep abreast of what is important, and we acknowledge that what happens in Muhammad's mosque is important, then you and I just can't afford not to come to Muhammad's mosque. And some of you are here because you have felt that urgency. And some of you are here out of curiosity. Whatever your reason for being here, you and I both should be glad that you're here. I'm glad you're here, and I'm sure that before the evening is over, you will be glad you came. Now, you're going to hear teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad tonight. Some of you for the first time. Those of you who've never heard this teaching before. And you should have, and I'm certain you do have, some questions in your mind right now. The number one question that you should be asking yourself, and you must be asking yourself, is who is going to talk to you? This is important. When you go to sit down to hear something, you want to know who's going to be saying it. Or you should want to know who's going to be saying it. There are many reasons why it's important. This doesn't mean that you're just not going to listen to anybody. You can learn truth from anybody that will tell the truth. Is that right? But it's important who tells you something, because before they tell you, you want to know, are they an authority on whatever they get ready to talk to you about. Is that right? All right, so that's a question that should be in your mind. Who is it that's going to talk to you? Second of all, what is he going to say? Before you consent to sit down to listen to what somebody, listen to somebody talk, you want to know something about what they're going to say. Because if you don't know what they're going to say, you don't know whether it's worthwhile for you to spend the time to even listen to them or not. Is that right? So that's question number two. First, who's going to talk to you? Second, what's he going to say? And the third, how will what he says benefit you? You don't need to feel ashamed because that sounds selfish or because you feel that way. That's the natural way to feel. The natural way to feel about anything you do, anything you say, anything you hear, anything you go for, anything you eat, anything you're attracted to is what will it do to benefit me. That's the intelligent way of examining anything. And if you're examining, you're seeing here this evening and you're ready to examine what is going to be said here in that manner, then you're doing it in the right way. We'll take up the first question, who is going to talk to you? Tonight we have a guest minister who came all the way across the continent to talk to us tonight. We have, as the guest minister tonight, not really a guest, he's at home here, Minister Malcolm X of Temple number 7, or Mosque number 7 in New York City. He is the minister of the largest mosque of Islam in North America. That's who he's going to be talking to. You may say, well, that still doesn't identify him because you said his name was Malcolm X. And what kind of a name is X? Well, he's not actually Malcolm X. You know that the X there stands for something that is missing. Is that right? The time you have X in a mathematical equation, it stands for something else that belongs there, and it's not actually the value of the thing it's replacing, but it's only there in place of it. And when you see the X behind Brother Minister Malcolm X's name, immediately you know. If you've never heard anything about the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, immediately you know that that X is what is known as an alias. That X is not his true name, but that X stands for his true name. But now, if we had said that you were going to listen to Mr. Malcolm Smith or Mr. Malcolm Johnson, would you have been just as aware that that was an alien? Or would you have accepted it as being his true name? If you search the X down, you will find that there's no family tree of X that you can connect him with. There's no X family tree that you can absolutely connect him with and say that's his family name. Then by the same token, any other name that we give you, you should try and trace that name down and see if you can connect it to a family tree. If we say Smith, and you trace it back 300, 400, or 500 years, you'll find that if it's his family tree, he's the only one on the tree that looks like him. Is that right or wrong? You trace Johnson, Brown, or Jones, or any name that like that we might give to him or say is his, and you won't find him or his people possessing it back beyond the days of slavery time. Is that right? So then if we use Smith to identify him, or Jones to identify him, that would be an alias just like the X is. So you and I want to identify the one who's going to speak to us, the one who's going to teach us tonight. Then we call him by his real name, his name that his family has always had, his name that can be traced as far back as you can trace it, and the farther back you trace it, the blacker they get. And we will be spoken to tonight by not actually Minister Malcolm X, but by Minister Malcolm Shabazz. This name, Shabazz, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, is the name of the tribe that all of us came from. All of us are members of. Every one of the 20 million or 25 million so-called Negroes in America are members of this tribe. And this is a great tribe. It is the greatest tribe. He teaches us that it is the tribe that founded the first civilization. He teaches us that actually it is the family of God himself. So when a man bears the name Shabazz, you're tracing his roots all the way back to God. And you can't find better names than that type of name. Is that right? All praise is due to Allah. Now, does that still identify him? You say, well, okay, that's good. But tell me some more to identify him. Well, we can identify him as being the right-hand man of Messenger Elijah Muhammad. Now, that doesn't mean anything to you unless you know who Messenger Elijah Muhammad is. And in order to identify him, this is the thing that makes Mr. Muhammad such a great leader. You can't identify any of his followers unless you first identify him. Now, in order to identify Minister Malcolm, we first must tell you who Messenger Elijah Muhammad is. I know you've heard of him. We can't say if you haven't heard of him. You've heard of him. So we identify him to you as being the one that you've heard so much about. He is the leader, the religious leader, who has made the greatest impact, the greatest international impact of any religious leader in history. He is the religious leader. He is the man, the messenger of Allah, who has made more converts to Allah than any single religious leader in the history of mankind. He is the one that the Reader's Digest calls the most powerful black man in America. That's the man, Muhammad. Now he is, to show his power, he is the man that every time he visits the capital of this nation, the capital of America, the police force gives him an escort into the city and back out of the city when he gets ready to leave. Just recently, while other so-called Negro leaders were going to jail for riding a bus, he was getting a police escort after riding a plane. All praise is due to Allah. Messenger Elijah Muhammad is the one that you heard so much about that is doing the greatest job of reformation on the so-called American Negro that has ever been done. It's not only the greatest job that has been done on the Negro, but it's the greatest job that has ever been done on anybody in history. In the first place, he has reformed more of us than anybody in history reformed. And in the second place, he has faulted his devil because nobody else in history was in as bad shape as we were. He is the one that you have heard they have no record of his having gone to the school system here in America or having partaken of the American educational system. Yet, he astounds the scholars. He confounds the scientists with his wisdom. This is the man that you have heard so much about who challenges anyone to disprove what he is saying at the expense of his own life. And there are many scholars, there are many scientists who would love to disprove what he is saying. In 30 years, none has been able to come forth and prove one word false that he has been teaching. That is who Messenger Elijah Muhammad is. Now that you know who Messenger Elijah Muhammad is, then that should give you a better indication of who Minister Malcolm is. Now that you recognize the one who sent him, now you know who he is. When you see a little boy knock on your door, if you've never seen him before, you open the door and you look and you see a stranger. And I don't care what he tells you about himself, he's still a stranger. But if you say, well, now, I still don't know you, and he says, well, I'm the son of Mrs. Jones across the street, and you and Mrs. Jones been tight for years, automatically, then you and that child are friends. Is that right or wrong? All praise is due to Allah. So now that we know Messenger Elijah Muhammad, then we know who we're going to listen to tonight. As we said before, this is his right-hand man. This is the minister of the largest mosque that bears the name of Muhammad. So now we can say that he is an authority on the teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Is that right or wrong? All right, now the second question. What is he going to say? What is he going to teach us? That's question number one. Now that we have established his right to say it, then now what is he going to say? He is going to teach us tonight of what has caused this great impact. He's going to say to us what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is saying that is making such a great impact all around the globe. He is going to tell us tonight what it is that makes Mr. Muhammad as powerful as he is. So powerful that even his worst critics, even his greatest enemies admit his power and submit to his power and treat him as any intelligent man treats a powerful man. He's going to tell us what it is that Mr. Muhammad has been teaching and still is teaching and will continue to teach that reforms so many of us, that takes us out of the gutter and sets us upright on the walk with the rest of civilization. What it is that he teaches that makes us quit the filthy habits that we once had and pick up decent habits. What it is that makes us discontent to have the lowest form of life, or have the lowest level of life, and make us want to do better and do as good as anybody else is doing. He's going to teach us some of that wisdom that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has astounded the scholars with. Some of that wisdom that he has used to confound some of the greatest scientists that are on the planet. That's what he's going to say. Now we know who he is. We know what he's going to talk about. And the last question is, how will it benefit us? If this teaching that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has, that Minister Malcolm is going to bring to us in just a couple of minutes, made such a great impact on the world, then you and I, the so-called Negro, need it worse than we need food, clothing, and shelter. Is that right or wrong? If that teaching makes such an impact, then you and I need it so we can make some kind of impact. Because we know if we search our history for 400 years, we've been trying to make an impact on just on the master's door and haven't been heard yet. Is that right? Just recently we've been riding almost 300 strong down into the Southland, trying to be heard. Not asking for anything. You know that the Freedom Riders didn't go down there saying, give up Mississippi, give up Alabama, turn over the state capital to us, give us a couple of acres or maybe a mule to fly with. They didn't ask for anything. They only asked that their voice be heard. Is that right or wrong? They didn't make enough they just made barely enough impact to have to go to jail and pay a fine. But they still haven't made enough impact to accomplish what they went down there to do. So if this teaching of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has made such an international impact, then you and I need it at least to try to make an impact in Mississippi and Georgia. All praise is due to Allah. Since this teaching is the power that makes the greatest enemy that you and I have ever had, or that any people have ever had, respect the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then you and I certainly need some of that power. If that power can make the enemy of you and me protect the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, then if we had that same power or some parts of that power, maybe we could get that same enemy to put lynch in us. Is that right or wrong? Not only doesn't he lynch the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but he protects him. So you and I need some of that power. So Minister Malcolm tonight is going to tell us some of the things that make the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have that power. You and I need to give ear, because that is one of the ways that it will benefit us. If the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching that you will hear tonight is that teaching which reforms, you and I really will benefit by it a lot. Is that right? If it has the ability to take the wino and snatch the wine bottle from it, to take the weed head and snatch the reefer out of his hand, to take the height and snatch the needle out of his arm, then there are many of us sitting in here right now who really need this teaching for that reason, if for no other reason. Is that right? If the teaching that you're going to hear tonight is the teaching that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has used to confound the scientists, has used to astound the scholars, then most certainly you and I need wisdom as dumb as we are. Is that right or wrong? You and I haven't had sense enough to go around the corner. Is that right? That may sound like an exaggeration, but we haven't had sense enough to go around the corner. If we got ready to go around, the proof of it, if you got ready to go around the corner right now, and if you met a white man in the street who claimed he was an authority, who talked with the right kind of accent, and told you that he knew what he was talking about, and told you don't go around that corner, you wouldn't go around the corner. Is that right or wrong? If you knew, if we told you, 10 of us, 10 black people look just like you, told you that there was gold laying around the corner, you wouldn't have sense enough to go around the corner if one white man stood there and told you you shouldn't go. So we need some wisdom. Is that right or wrong? Then identifying Brother Minister Malcolm, actually, we shouldn't have had to do it. Your eyes should have identified him and given him all the authority he needed to talk to you. But where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has caught the same thing for 30 years, today your mind is relaxing to the point that you today can begin to see yourself in another black man. But brothers and sisters, for many years, the main reason that our people wouldn't listen to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the reason that a few of them still don't want to listen to him, is not because he's different from them, but because he's like them. And that's different type of thinking than you find in any creatures anywhere. You never find anybody else that's more willing to listen to others than their own kind than they are to their own kind. We're the only people that could get more, you would give more attention if there was somebody up here who was a different color from you than the ones up here all looking like you. Nobody else does that. Nobody else. In fact, if we were all up here and we had one Chinaman up here on the rostrum with us, and we had about 10 Chinese come in and sit down, they would be watching all of us, but they would all have their eyes focused on that Chinaman. They will all be waiting to see what he's got to say. Because no matter what would be said up here, their main thought would be, now when they get through talking, what good is it going to be for the Chinaman? Is that right or wrong? If we had one Italian and 10 Italians out there, one German and 10 Germans sitting out there, each one would be thinking, how good was it for them? And each one would be looking at his man. The Germans would be looking at the German. The Italians would be looking at the Italian, and the Chinaman, the Chinese would be looking at the Chinaman, waiting for them to tell how they fit in the situation. Because you couldn't convince the Chinaman that the German could best tell him what good this message was for the Chinaman. And you couldn't convince the Italian that the Chinaman could best tell him what good it was for the Italian. But each one would be waiting for the one who was just like him to tell him what good it was for his people. Then he would take their word. But you and I sit now here, if we did have a German up here, and did have an Italian up here, and did have a Japanese up here, you would sit up here no matter how many of your own kind talk to you, you'd still be waiting to see if one of those foreigners or one of those white men would verify what that person was saying. And all you have to do to nullify what your own black brother would say, would get up and say, no, he's not telling the truth, and you'd wash away everything that we had said. Is that right or wrong? All praise is due to Allah. So brothers and sisters, that condition alone tells us that we need to hear something that we haven't heard before. And those of you who are here for your first time, you will truly hear something that you've never heard before. You'll hear a message that will reform you. A message that will make an impact upon you and make you make an impact on the world. A message that will give you power and a message of wisdom that's designed for you. A message that will stop you from all of the evil habits and all of the harmful habits and make you start doing nothing but that which is good for you and good for those like you. You may say, well, I'm already doing what's good for me. I've already dropped my evil habits. I've already stopped doing those things that you all mentioned in detail a few minutes ago. And I am now following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You still need to hear what is going to be said here tonight. You ate yesterday, but you got hungry again today. Is that right or wrong? You couldn't depend on the food you ate yesterday to keep on carrying you from now on. You can't look back 10 years and say, I ate a meal once and I'm going to keep on going. No, if you keep on going, you got to keep on eating. Is that right? The food that you eat is eaten so that your body can take the energy that's in it and use it for you to carry on the body's normal activity. Well, it's the same way with spiritual food. The spiritual food that you take in is taken in order to strengthen you for the duties that you have to perform. And just like you can't depend on the spiritual food you got 10 years ago, the physical food you got 10 years ago, you can't depend on the spiritual food you got 10 years ago. You're constantly working, so you constantly got to have your energy replenished, so you got to keep on eating physically, and you got to keep on eating spiritually. So no matter what your status is, if you're a brand new newcomer, just came in the door for the first time, or if you're a Muslim with your holy name, you need to hear what's going to be taught here tonight. And since you need to hear it, we want you to hear it just as soon as possible. And the soonest possible time from now is now. So brothers and sisters, I thank you for giving me your attention. I know that you will give the same attention to the one who follows me, Minister Malcolm. And it's an honor. Anytime the Honorable Elijah Muhammad sends someone to you, well, that's a man sent from the man from God. That's a blessing. Anytime it's a blessing to get a letter from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know it's a blessing to get a representative from him. Is that right or wrong? Praise the peace to our life. So we are blessed, and we are all ready now to receive our blessing. So brothers and sisters, at this time I introduce to you, and not introduce to most of you, but present to you. I don't think there's anybody in here that doesn't know him or know of him. I'd like to present to you at this time the minister of the largest mosque, Muhammad's Mosque, number 7 in Harlem, right in the heart of Harlem, the blackest black belt in America. I'd like to present to you Minister Malcolm as I greet you in the name of Allah and in the name of his last and greatest messenger, our beloved leader and teacher, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum. Brother Minister John Shannon, take another drop. I know how to pass that right on. In the name of Allah, the all-wise, true, and living God, to whom all praise is due, the Lord of all the world, whom we forever thank for giving us as our leader and teacher, the one who's there in America today in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, at Muhammad's Mosque, number 27, here in Los Angeles, I am thankful to Allah for blessing me to be able to be here this evening. And I am the one who is blessed. It's a blessing to walk around in hell and find some people who look like they came from heaven. And the work that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is doing among the so-called Negroes here in America today is just that. As Minister John has already beautifully explained, the actual work that the messenger is doing is designed to prepare you and me for the heaven that we always dreamt about in the past, but thought we would have to die in order to reach. And today we are happy to learn that we don't have to die. All we have to do is come back to life. So it's a blessing just to know that you don't have to die to go to heaven. Do you know that? That's right. It's a blessing to know that you can have some kind of happiness, joy, and success right here on this earth in this life. And if ever a man or woman was cursed, it was he or she who thought and looked forward toward the day that they die in order to get something. So again, I thank Allah. And tonight, the purpose of our being here, we're not going all down in the bottom of the ocean like Minister John said, but we have to, as you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has a weekly program which used to come here called Mr. Muhammad Speaks. And during recent months that he has been bothered with this asthmatic condition, we've been substituting for him and making the broadcast from whatever city we happen to be in. And tonight, from Los Angeles, we would like to make that broadcast so that the people, our people, in other parts of the country will know the wonderful work that the followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are also doing here in this city. So that's what we're going to do. And I want to point out that during these there was a time when we first started broadcasting that the audience would respond in whatever way they felt, but that shook the devil up. I mean the white man. Some of y'all might be here tonight for the first time and may not have your dictionary with you. And because of that, you may not understand some of the terms that we use. But when we say devil, we don't mean somebody down in the ground. We know who the devil is. No speculation, no calculation. This is exact summation. That's the word devil. We know who the devil is. So when we first started broadcasting, the white man is the type of person who doesn't mind you telling the truth too much as long as nobody's listening. And then he doesn't mind you telling it if they're listening and don't believe it. But when he hears you telling the truth and everybody's saying that's right, that's too much for him to take. So wherein we used to broadcast, and you could hear the Muslims in the background saying that's right, the messenger whom God has made all-wise was able to foresee the real reaction of the white man to that type of response. So today, whenever these broadcasts are made, during the entire broadcast, we ask you not to make a sound. And if you believe it, just shake your head. That's enough. But when the white man hears black people, many, many, many black voices, or many, many voices of black people in unison, he doesn't even like to hear you be in unison. If one would say that's right this second and the other would say it the next second, he wouldn't mind that too much. But Islam is the type of truth. Everybody says that's right all at once. And that shakes him up. So we don't want to shake him up. We want to stay on the radio and shake our people up. The main objective of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad always is to awaken our people. I would point this out too. Oftentimes on these broadcasts, to some of you, they may sound repetitious, but they sound repetitious only to those who don't understand. It's easy for me, in one sense, to measure the degree of sincerity or the depth of understanding that a Muslim has. When you find a Muslim, while you're teaching, looking bored, that Muslim thinks that he already knows everything. He foresees what you're going to say. And sitting there, thinking that he has already heard what you're going to say, he goes to sleep. Well, he never really woke up. If I wake you up and tell you that your house is going to blow up, And then as I'm telling you this over and over and over, you get groggy and start to go back to sleep. You still didn't wake up. You didn't wake up until you got out of that house and lay down somewhere else and go to sleep, where you have some kind of safety or security. And after hearing Islam today, and you wake up, and then if you begin to get groggy again, this is an indication that you didn't wake up at the outset. Now, the depth of understanding and sincerity can be measured like this. The only time the teaching of Islam become boring to you, in case you have heard it over and over and over again, is when you're thinking only of yourself. But the real sincere Muslim who rightly understands, he's never thinking in terms of what he has heard, but he's always thinking in terms of that one who's hearing it for the first time. This is how you measure your own heart condition. I recall when I first came into the mosque some months or weeks or years ago, it used to knock me out just to know that there were some people there for the first time. And everything that was said, it moved me, because I knew it moved them. And it woke me up because it was waking them up. In other words, a Muslim wants for his brother what he wants for himself. I'm sure I tell you this because these are yardsticks that you use to measure the depth or the breadth, the depth of one's heart or one's mind or one's sincerity or one's understanding. One of the outstanding characteristics of Islam that makes the Muslim different from the Christian, that makes the black Muslim differ from the Negro Christian. Negro Christian thinks only of himself or only of herself. But a Muslim always wants for his brother what he wants for himself. What makes his brother happy makes him happy. What gives incentive to his brother gives the same thing to him. Do you understand that? So when these broadcasts are made, I explain this to you so you'll understand. Sometimes you have to realize that people turn on the radio right in the middle of the broadcast. So that means you have to, all the while you're on the radio, you have to talk in circles. You have to go back and come forward. And then you have to go back and come forward. And go back and come forward. You're reaching all of the time for that one that just clicked on the radio. And by doing this, over a period of weeks, the listening audience that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has is constantly being increased or built up. So that when the broadcast is taking place, the speaker is never addressing those who are in the mosque, but his mind is on those millions who are out there in what they call radio land. He's talking to the white man as well as to the black man. And when you realize that you're talking to the white man as well as to the black man, what you are doing is the same as a shepherd who has found his little lost lamb in the clutches of a rattlesnake, and that snake is poised to strike the lamb. And you have to talk the lamb out of the clutches of the snake. And everything that you say to the lamb, the snake can hear also. So it means that your words and phrases have to be weighed to such mathematical precision or perfection that they slip right through the serpent's ear without it doing him any good, and they rest upon the ear and the mind of the lamb. Do you understand? You have to constantly be drawing the lamb out of distance, out of striking distance from that serpent. It's the same way today when you teach the so-called Negro here in America, because everything you say to him, the white man is listening. And the white man is a serpent. He's a snake. He's a dragon. He's a monster. And if he wasn't, you wouldn't be in the shape you're in. You wouldn't look like that automatically, brother. Oh, you had an accident somewhere along the line. No one who is your friend ever could have done unto you what your appearance today indicates has been done. And so we're dealing with an enemy, we're dealing with our brother, and we're dealing with a time element. So these are things to keep in your mind, and we hope that you understand. We know you will. This broadcast covers the nation, and we have had our coat pulled, excuse the expression, and been made to understand that you'd be surprised who listens to it. For one thing, the white man knows he's in trouble. And he knows that just like when Pharaoh was in trouble, there was a man named Joseph. When Pharaoh was being troubled with visions, as he lay in his bed at night, he knew that there was a man named Joseph, a slave, who understood the meaning behind the trouble that he was having. All throughout the Bible, you'll notice, whenever the ruler was in trouble, or the nation that dominated all of the nations was in trouble, God always had a man of his own in the midst of that nation who had the right understanding. Well, the American white man knows this. The American government knows this. I know that you know this on the television. Did you see television last night? You know this as the Muslim caravan pulled up to the Uline Arena. It was escorted by the police. Did you notice that? Well, this escort was for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Whenever he goes to Washington, as Minister John pointed out, now you've been told he's subversive. Don't get around it. But when he goes to Washington, the police meet him at the airport. We'll give him a motorcycle escort. And they did it last week when he was in Washington, and when he got back to Chicago, for the first time in 31 years, the Chicago police turned out and escorted him all the way from the airport into the city. Because they know what's happening. They know if anything happened to Mr. Muhammad, America will be wiped off the map before sundown. Just like that. Before sundown. They pray for him harder than we do. That's right. And they should. And they should, because he's not only is he your and my salvation, but he's their salvation. Now, brothers and sisters, during this entire broadcast, please don't utter a sound. Other than when I say Assalamu alaikum, you can reply wa alaikum salam, but from then on, will you please not utter a sound? You understand that? And for the benefit of those who may come in after we get started, I wish whoever is at the door would tell them also, don't say a mumbling word. Is that understood? Make sure that that's not done, because you put us on the spot. When I say Assalamu alaikum, you say wa alaikum salam, and that ends it until the end of the program. Do you understand that? Well, Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, to whom all praise is due, whom we forever thank for giving America's 20 million so-called Negroes the most honorable Elijah Muhammad as our divine leader, teacher, and guide. Beloved brothers and sisters and friends of our radio audience, welcome to our weekly broadcast, Mr. Muhammad Speaks. This is Minister Malcolm X, substituting for our beloved leader and teacher, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and broadcasting this week from the West Coast, from Muhammad's Mosque number 27, which is located at 5606 Broadway, here in Los Angeles, California. That's 56th Street and Broadway, here in Los Angeles, California. It has been several months since I last visited here in Los Angeles, but since my return here a few days ago, and I have had the opportunity to go here and there around this beautiful city, I must confess I've been amazed and extremely impressed by the rapid growth of the Muslim community here. Wherever one goes here in Los Angeles, whether it be out in Beverly Hills, Hollywood Heights, or here in the Central Avenue section, everyone seems to be talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and bearing witness to the great religious work that God is blessing him to do among the 20 million so-called American Negroes. Most of these young followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad here in Los Angeles have already risen to the point economically wherein they don't have to embarrass themselves and the white man any longer by continuing to beg the white man for jobs that they no longer have. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that actually the white man doesn't have jobs enough today to employ his own people, much less to employ our people. And many of these economy-minded young Muslims here in Los Angeles who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have pooled their own wealth and their own talents and have started businesses and other economic enterprises here that provide jobs for themselves as well as for their own kind. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad have made his young followers aware of the value of the dollar that is wisely spent. The value of the dollar that is wisely spent. The most powerful bullet, when shot carelessly, misses the target and therefore is of no value. The bullet has value only when directed intelligently straight toward a given target. Dollars are like bullets. Spent carelessly, the dollar has no target. Therefore it loses its value. Just as a hunter who shoots his bullets carelessly has very little to show for his hunting trip, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that people who spend their dollars carelessly have very little to show for their shopping trip. I repeat, dollars are like bullets. Spent carelessly, the dollar has no target, no value. And just as the hunter who shoots his bullets carelessly has very little to show for his hunting trip, people who spend their dollars carelessly have very little to show for their shopping trip. Therefore, the Muslims who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad take great care to challenge their purchasing power in the right direction. They exercise great care in how they spend their hard-earned money, where they spend their hard-earned money, and whom they spend their hard-earned money with. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's young Muslims don't waste their money on sport and play. They don't go to taverns, bars, or nightclubs. They don't use alcohol, narcotics, or even cigarettes. The money that they save by abstaining from these vices and immoral practices is channeled in a more constructive area. By teaching his followers the importance of controlled spending, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is also showing our people how to establish and support businesses in our own community that also provide employment for the people of our community. By showing our people how to solve our economic problems, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad not only is showing our people how to help themselves, but at the same time he is helping America solve the worst problem facing the white man here in the Western world today. And that problem is the problem of what to do with the increasing economic, political, and social demands of 20 million so-called American Negroes. Beloved brothers and sisters of our radio audience, at this point in our broadcast this evening, let us pause while you get a pencil and a paper, and we wish that you would get it quickly. Write down this address that we are going to give you, and it may save you from the wrath of God that we see coming upon this wicked, sinful world. God has raised the Honorable Elijah Muhammad up from the midst of the 20 million American so-called Negroes and missioned him to reform us of our sins, of our immoral habits, and also to cure us of our lazy, begging, dependent ways, and show us how to do something for ourselves for a change. Every one of you who are listening to this broadcast should be happy to help the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in this great religious work to reform and re-educate America's 20 million so-called Negroes. This is everyone's problem. In fact, this is America's number one problem. This is the number one headache the American white man has today. Once our people, the 20 million so-called American Negroes,